Yes, you saw the title right. My love for K-pop made me get accepted to one of the top art schools in the world with a mere 6% acceptance rate. This is the story of how being a K-pop fangirl changed my life. Well, okay, maybe that was a bit too exaggerated for title purposes for YouTube, but just hear me out in this video. Hi everyone, my name is Veda, aka Saku here on the internet. And for this week's video, I wanted to do more of a silly, lighthearted video compared to the video essays and other stuff I've been doing. And more of a story time. Yes, not me doing a story time video in the year of 2025. Anyways, being an artist who has documented her art journey on this channel for 5 years plus, one of the most frequent questions I get asked is, how do you have the motivation to draw? And to be honest, I've been thinking about this a lot too. As much as I love making animated short films and as much as I'm grateful that I'm able to earn money by drawing, I can't help but feel in recent times that I am a bit burnt out. I mean, I still draw because my life low-key depends on it, but nowadays I find it hard to have the same amount of passion in me anymore, the same amount of determination I had during high school, in which I would be drawing every moment I got the chance to. Now that I've entered my 20s, I fondly look back on these teenage years. Think about how the 16, 17-year-old me seemingly had all the energy in the world, how I managed to wake up at 6:30 a.m. every single weekday, go to school, and then study, and then go to college apps as well as all these extracurriculars, and then I also had dance class, and then somehow still maintain a YouTube weekly schedule, and most importantly, keep up with what all my favorite idols are doing. All I can say is you can never underestimate a teenage fangirl. It really is the epitome of youth. Anyways, looking back, I feel as though part of the reason why I could be so motivated is because I was a big fangirl. I was so determined to make the best fan art I could for my favorite K-pop group that I trained myself so much without realizing. And by the time I had to apply to college, my technical drawing ability has improved so much that I managed to get into my dream art school. So without further ado, let me tell you about the story of how I got good at being art by being a K-pop fangirl. The year was 2020, and we all know what happened during 2020. So as one did, I stayed at home. Since I was a massive introvert anyways, and school was announced to be online, I didn't really have a problem with it. Initially thinking it would just be like a month, slowly led to 2 months, to 3 months, to literally a whole semester, and then a whole school year. I did not leave the house for a very long time. And because of that, I was very chronically online, which looking back probably did something to me mentally, but that is also how I managed to discover the K-pop boy group 17. I was about 15 at the time, so the idea of college slowly started to make its way into my head. I've always been an art kid, so I was kind of putting 2 and 2 together and thinking maybe I should study something art related in college. Since I am a big anime and manga fan, as well as watching many cartoons growing up, I thought maybe I should study animation. So I started Googling and researching different animation schools. CalArts, which is one of the top animation schools in the world, popped up. So naturally, I clicked on these CalArts films and CalArts sketchbook videos, and I really vividly remember thinking, wow, that is really crazy. I don't think I could ever do that. Regardless, I thought it was better to shoot my shot anyways, so from that moment on, I decided that I was gonna train hard for my art school portfolio. Now, bringing this back to when I first discovered 17. I always casually listened to K-pop before I discovered them, but it was really through this group that I really fell deep into the K-pop hole. As much as I love 17, this video is not about 17, so I'm gonna spare you guys the details. But if you're interested on this specific K-pop group, I'm gonna link my 17 starter playlist in the link in the description, so go listen to it. It's very good music. Although music is a really big part to K-pop, what really drew me into this specific K-pop boy group was how passionate they were. 17 debuted from a very small company at the time, which didn't have a lot of money, So learning about their story and seeing during their teenage debut years how passionate they were to pursue their roads to become musicians really inspired me, especially because they were very humble, and despite not having resources, they were really fighting for themselves. And just look at them now. They're one of the biggest K-pop boy groups out there, topping charts and selling stadiums across the world. Just hearing about this story is so inspiring to me. Another thing is, although K-pop is a very aesthetic-based genre, what drew me into 17 wasn't really the aesthetics. Like, it was part of it, but the main reason why I started to have interest in them is because of their personalities. I stumbled upon one of their interviews, which led me to watch also their variety shows, and their dynamics with each other, how it's like a fun friend group, just really captivated me. So little 15-year-old Veda was hooked. And as one does, I was like, I have to make fan art. However, the thing is, I never drew things outside of anime before. So drawing K-pop fan art was really hard for me. I remember thinking, yes, I could technically draw these K-pop idols in the anime way, but unless you know every member's styling, it's really hard for you to tell which member is who. So that was when I was determined that I am going to learn how to draw realism. As I said, since this is during the pandemic era, not only were all my classes online, I also didn't have commute times anymore, which led me to a lot of free time on my hands. That's when I decided I was gonna test out and really practice my drawing abilities by making a pre-col art sketchbook, a way for me to practice before I start actually applying to art schools. When I was doing research on what CalArts was looking for in a portfolio/sketchbook, I found out that they really wanted to see you draw directly in pen and show a good understanding of contour and form, as well as a lot of life drawing. If you don't know what life drawing is, the best way to describe it is drawing what you see rather than drawing what you think you see. When I life draw, I'm not really thinking about the subject, for example. I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm drawing a human, but rather I'm observing the line and contour of the subject, how the form interacts with the light and shadow. So me, who only drew anime in the past, I was like, oh no, what do? I don't know how to do this at all. And since I was in my fangirl era in which 17 is constantly in my head, I decided that I would life draw photos of 17, building my line confidence and drawing mileage by drawing 17 over and over again. Because 17 has 13 members, yes, I know, they don't have 17 members. Although I had my bias, I would force myself to draw every single member regardless. So before I knew it, every time I drew them, I had to draw 13 portraits. And I drew 17 many times, which slowly, before I knew it, my life drawing ability started to increase. I remember in the beginning, I truly struggled so much since I had to practice drawing directly in pen. And as well as me not being familiar with drawing real people, I would always butcher the members' faces. Sorry, 17. But I was so determined to create the perfect fan art that I would just keep practicing over and over again. From drawing their photo shoots, from drawing stills from their music videos, I drew them all. It even got to the point which I would life draw things that aren't the 17 members specifically, but rather things that are related to the fandom. For example, one of the members, Hoshi, really likes the animal tiger. In fact, his stage name Hoshi in Korean means tiger gaze. So you know what I did? I drew a lot of tigers in my sketchbook as well. Not only would I life draw photos of tigers, I would also draw the anatomy and the skeleton of the tiger to further practice, because especially I think for CalArts' application, that's something they really want to see is your understand of anatomy. Also, another thing I really liked to draw was actually 17's choreography, which is how I practiced gesture drawing. If you don't know, gesture drawing is a type of life drawing. However, it focuses way more on the movement rather than the structure of the subject. These drawings are usually done very quickly, about 30 seconds to 2 minutes. In gesture drawing specifically, the artist is basically training how to identify the line of action, the flow of the movement, and how to make a drawing feel less stiff, which is perfect for me as a K-pop stan because basically in every single title track there is a choreography that comes with it. So by drawing 17's choreography, I can practice gesture drawing, and 17's choreography is one of the most top tier, may I add. So yes, fueled by the motivation to draw fan art for my favorite K-pop boy group, I life drew every moment I could, and through these portraits of 17 members or animals that the 17 members liked and gesture drawings of their choreography, no longer was I someone who only knew how to draw anime. Of course, I drew other things as well, not just 17 or anything 17 adjacent, but 17 really was one of the biggest motivations to keep me to practice drawing every single day. Actually, the entire training arc that I described so far all took place within one summer. So by the time school rolled around, before I knew it, my art has grown so much. So yeah, when school started again, I became a junior in high school, which is also the first year I started IB, which if you don't know, it's basically a hardcore version of A-levels or GCSE. So obviously, as an art kid, I took IB Visual Arts, in which we had to analyze different painters' art styles and create our own art inspired by these said painters. Two of the artists I analyzed were Edward Hopper, which is an American realism painter who was very active around the early 1900s, as well as Rembrandt, a Dutch painter during the Baroque period in the 1600s. So what does this have to do with me being a K-pop stan? To further my craft for my fan art, I would start to apply what I learned from analyzing these painters into my 17 fan art. Guess I was that crazy. So yeah, other than the sketchbook, I started to paint a lot, mainly digital portraits of 17. And to my surprise, I really got the hang of it. From how they mix shadows to the colors that these painters used, I would incorporate them into my 17 fan art. Oh my god, this sounds so silly to say, but it's so true. Anyways, to my surprise, I started to get the hang of it as well. Although I've painted a few times in the past, as I said, prior to this, all I did was anime fan art, so it is a shift that you need to take. And I remember when I first started drawing digital portrait fan art for 17, I actually struggled so much as well. I was so upset and frustrated at myself because no matter how long I would spend on the sketch, it just doesn't look right. And then I would be liquefying for hours on end and then erasing and then drawing it back and erasing and drawing it back over and over, and something would still not look right. But after training for a few months, I realized that I didn't have the same struggles anymore, and I was able to create these fan arts and portraits within 1 or 2 hours, which is isn't that crazy? Another thing I want to say is during that time, because I was a hardcore fangirl, I was very active in the fandom community as well, and particularly 17's fan Discord server. Shout out to SBT Cord, because that's where I met a lot of supportive online friends / mutuals, and their encouragement every time I would send my artwork in the server really pushed me to keep drawing even more. So yeah, not only did all this K-pop madness in my head made me want to draw so much to produce good fan art, I also realized that the skill I've acquired along the way, originally for just to me to draw K-pop fan art, ended up being so useful to not only in my school work, but also when I was applying to art colleges. As I said before, I only drew anime stuff, which is not a bad thing, by the way. Anime has its charms, but it's when I was applying to these art schools, they didn't really want to see anime as much, which is why I had to do all of that other stuff. Anyways, as I was saying, because of all this K-pop fan art portrait practice, I was able to do fine art without much struggle as well. Before I knew it, I was a senior in high school now, which means that college app season is right around the corner. And of course, I had to actually start creating my portfolio. To really make my application stand out, I realized how important it is to put my personality and my life into my drawings and my portfolio. By this time, I'm around 17 years old, which 17, haha, I get it. So yeah, I realized how much 17 had an impact on those 2 years I became a Karat, which is the name of 17 fans, and how much their content and music has impacted me as a person. For example, I liked 17 so much at the time that I decided that I wanted to learn their dances as well. So I enrolled myself in open classes and dance studios to learn how to dance. This can be a whole story within itself, which I kind of made a video about it like 4 years ago. But through my dance journey, it was how I learned how to become more confident and how to step out of my comfort zone. I don't know if you can tell, but I really used to be the biggest shut-in otaku, and I was very shy. But it was through K-pop and seeing all these idols look so fashionable and cool that I started to get interested in fashion and makeup as well. Not in the toxic, I need to conform to beauty standards way, but as a way to express myself and dressing up for myself so I can feel more confident. So when it came to my portfolio, which I wanted to include a lot of my personality into my works, I also included my love for K-pop because it really at that point became a huge part of me, and I even stuck in little 17 stickers at the back of my CalArts sketchbook for good luck, and maybe that actually helped because by March of 2022 I got accepted into CalArts, which, if you can recall, is the very school I said when I was 15 that I could never ever do that. The moral of the story is that being a K-pop fangirl really changed my life. If it isn't for me to discover K-pop, I don't think I would have so much motivation to practice life drawing, as well as enrolling myself in dance classes, or maybe I wouldn't have met some of my online friends, which made the pandemic feel a lot less lonely. It's really crazy to think how much these 13 boys have an impact on a random girl's life without ever meeting. To be honest, I really don't listen to K-pop that much these days, especially compared to my teenage years. I think I just kind of grew out of it because I became so busy after college and the new generations don't really hit the same for me anymore. But I'll always be grateful on how much K-pop played an impact into my life. Of course, this video is not me like forcing you to listen to K-pop, but rather just a funny story of how my fangirl experience motivated me so hard to become a better artist and a better person. And of course, you don't have to be a fan of K-pop for a huge burst of motivation to come to you. You could be a fan of anything, and it'll really become a big motivation for you to improve your craft, even if the two things aren't related, like how K-pop is a music genre and me wanting to learn how to draw. Thinking about it, I actually started drawing in the first place because I was a fan of My Little Pony and anime. Making something for something you love and finding yourself in a community of people who love the same thing as you, I feel as though that really is what makes being a fangirl/fanboy experience so great. Of course, there are the negative aspects, like how some fangirls are crazily parasocial, or how some people spend way too much money on their faves, and people usually associate K-pop stans or really hardcore stans in a negative way, which I agree sometimes, but it really isn't always the case. So next time you run out of motivation, ask yourself, what is something that you really love? Of course, making original work is very important as well, but once in a while, make a piece of fan art. And you can even use this as an opportunity to practice by creating fan arts. And with that, thank you all so much for listening to my story. I know some of you guys watching this might have actually stuck around through my entire fangirl era and you've witnessed all my ups and downs. So I'm really grateful to those of you who have that stuck with me this whole time and still continue to watch me. I am really grateful for all of your support. Since August is starting soon, I do have to prepare for going back for my final year in college. So unfortunately, as much as I want to keep making my weekly uploads, I am going to start a bi-weekly uploading schedule for now because I really cannot dedicate as much time to making YouTube videos anymore. So I hope you guys understand. But don't worry, I still will be posting, just less frequent, and I will keep talking about topics I'm passionate about, from art, anime, animation to psychology and culture and so much more. So if you're interested, please considering liking this video and subscribing to this channel. Your support would really mean a lot to me. And if you want to check out my art, the link to my Instagram is in the description, so go check it out. As always, if you guys have any anecdotes that are similar or how being a fan of something changed your life, I would love to hear your experiences in the comment section down below. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching this silly story time video, and yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye. By the way, for this video specifically, I decided to put some of my 17 merch in the background. This is the Love and Letter album, this is the light stick, and then there's 3 more albums in the back, and then one of them's in the CD player. Okay, yeah. Okay, bye bye.